NTA International News.
President Muhammadu Buhari continues strategic engagements to maintain a stable, secure and prosperous Nigeria as he condemns killings in Benue State. ECOWAS Parliament moves to check terrorism in West African sub-region. Senate to probe allegations of irregularities against Senate President and Chairman Senate Committee on FCT. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Ominiodan is my name. President Muhammadu Buhari has commiserated with the government and people of Benue State on the recent attack on a market in Zakibiam by unknown gunmen, which resulted in loss of lives. The president condemns the wicked attack and directs security agencies to begin immediate investigation with a view to bringing the perpetrators of the dastardly act to book. The president also condemns the wanton killings in other parts of the country and challenged security and law enforcement agencies to rise to the challenge. He enjoins all citizens to learn to live together in peace and brotherhood and not allow little misunderstandings degenerate into heartless acts capable of straining the bond of nationhood. President Buhari sympathized with those who lost loved ones and prayed Almighty God to comfort the grieving families and grant souls of the victims eternal rest. Most service chiefs were granted audience by President Muhammadu Buhari in furtherance of his strategic engagements with critical stakeholders on national security. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that the meeting with the top brass of the nation's military, which started last Friday, is an act of maintaining stable security, secure and prosperous Nigeria.
If the alarming security situation inherited by the Buhari administration is anything to go by, no one will remain in doubt that the government's promise of securing Nigeria for efficient management has been largely delivered. What matters most now for President Muhammadu Buhari is sustainable peace, national security and stability for effective implementation of the change agenda, hence the latest engagement with the service chiefs.
The country has to be secured to be efficiently managed. If there is no security, no matter your resources, human and material, you are not going to benefit from it.
First to arrive at the State House was the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, whose meeting with the President behind closed doors lasted about 1 hour. Their discussions, NTA News gathered, centered on ways and means of enhancing the capacity of the Nigerian Army in defending the territorial integrity of the country. General Buratai described the meeting as fruitful.
Mr. President is happy with the Nigerian Army, happy with the military, and we'll continue to do our work as enshrined in the Constitution. And we equally assure him of absolute loyalty to ensure that we discharge our constitutional responsibilities accordingly.
Also summoned by the President for similar briefing was the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, as critical stakeholder in the fight against terrorism and insurgency, as well as the Secure Nigeria project.
We are doing everything humanly possible to ensure that our societies are secure, our communities are stable, so that people can go about pursuing their legitimate aspirations without any fear. That is the purpose for which the Air Force is established, and that is what we are working to ensure, that we do everything humanly possible to create such an enabling environment. Without security, you can't think of development. We are very familiar with that, the relationship between development and security, and we are working around the clock to ensure that we provide the enabling environment for development.
The security briefing started last Friday with the National Security Advisor and the Chief of Defense Staff. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
In a bid to address the issue of recurring cases of terrorism in West Africa, which has brought untold hardship on the society, members of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS Parliament, have converged on Bamako, the capital of Mali, to chart a new course for the organization. Olain Kaujo reports.
Terrorism poses a serious threat to international peace. It undermines the pursuit of peace, good governance, democracy, and development. This is why peace and security, challenges in the fight against terrorism in West Africa, the case of Mali, will be the focus of the ECOWAS Parliament's delocalized meeting. It is aimed at implementing community peace and anti-terrorism campaigns, as well as ensure parliamentarians become more acquainted with international and regional peace-building framework. With Mali peace process top on the agenda of the meeting, communication, interactive sitting, and citizens' audience sitting, particularly for those affected by terrorism, will be one of the intervention mechanisms.
Les députés pourront contribuer à la résolution définitive de cette crise qui sévit depuis longtemps.
We will be focusing our discussions on issues of peace and security for the coming 5 days. And we will also try to have thorough discussions, and so that once we go back to Abuja, we can have an idea about proposals, about suggestions on how to help Mali resolve this thorny issue.
The theme for the localized meeting was adopted during the extraordinary session in February 2017. In Bamako, Olainka Ojo, NTA News.
The Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions has been given 4 weeks to investigate allegations of irregularities against Senate President Bukola Saraki and Senator Dino Melayi. This followed a point of order raised by former Senate leader Mohammed Ali Ndume, who cited publication by sections of the media accusing the Senate President of importing vehicles without customs duties and alleging that Senator Dino Melayi's first degree was fake.
Leaks that are following in ways, particularly online, have seen or have had or read the reign of abuses on this Senate, and the misconception of the fact that we invited the custom CG based on a very unpopular policy that affects the people we represent. Therefore, accordingly, I would appeal that we refer the matter to Ethics and Privileges to investigate, so that our colleagues will be cleared and this Senate will stand as it's supposed to.
Reacting to the allegation at a news briefing, Senator Dino Melayi said he has 7 degrees and currently pursuing the 8th one. He pledged to submit himself to the Senate Committee for investigation.
Democracy is about investigation, and no senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is above investigation. So to me, it's a very, very welcome development, and it will finally clear the air of all malicious and vindictive allegations.
The leader of the Senate, Ahmed Lawal, says the legislature would continue to work hand in hand with the Buhari presidency to deliver on its promises to the people of the country. He said as a policy, the National Assembly, especially the Senate, would continue to engage in wide consultation with the executive on issues arising in order to arrive at appropriate decisions to the benefit of Nigerians. The Senate leader, who spoke to State House correspondents Gideon Nifade after the visit to the Vice President, was in company of his deputy Bala Ibn Na'ala.
This is democracy, and sometimes the legislature and the executive will disagree on certain issues. Sometimes they agree, but what is important is to ensure that we work in the interest of the country. And as a government dominated by APC, it behoves both the legislature and the executive to work together, consult as widely and deeply as possible all the time. And that's what we are trying to do. And I want to assure you and the general public that the National Assembly, and particularly the Senate, will always work with the executive arm of government in total support of Muhammadu Buhari administration to ensure that we deliver to Nigerians our campaign promises.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has commended President Muhammadu Buhari on the strides Nigeria has made in the campaign against Boko Haram, as well as surmounting other security challenges. In a telephone conversation, the Egyptian leader Tuesday wished President Muhammadu Buhari well. President el-Sisi, who expressed the preparedness of his country to assist in Nigeria's quest to overcome her security concerns, if needed, hoped that the two countries will continue to partner in other areas of mutual interest. Also on Thursday last week, President Adama Barrow of the Gambia, in a goodwill phone call to President Buhari, thanked Nigeria for her leading role in his emergence as president of his country and wished the Nigerian leader well. Similarly, on the same day last week, President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana called President Buhari to wish him good health and greater bilateral cooperation between the West African countries. In the meantime, the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, has given assurances that President Muhammadu Buhari will fulfill his campaign promises to Nigerians. He addressed the delegation of Northern Youth Initiative for Peace and Good Governance Tuesday in Abuja, urging them to keep faith with the current administration's commitment to stimulate the economy for job creation, anti-corruption campaign, and security of lives and property. The presidential spokesman appreciated Nigerians for keeping faith. President of the group, Comrade Muhammadu Abubakar, described Femi Adesina as an exemplary leader. Experts at the round table organized by the National Institute for Legislative Studies in Abuja have suggested a holistic approach to tackle the challenge of climate change. National Assembly correspondent Rabi Musa reports that they raised issues bordering on developing a bill on the matter.
Studies have shown that Nigeria is vulnerable to the impact of climate change, considering her geography, population, energy demands, and agricultural activities. The absence of specific legislative instrument that prescribes legal obligation for compliance with elements of the natural climate policy has remained a challenge to climate change management in the country. This is why a professor of law from the University of Jos, Dominic Asada, is advocating the mainstreaming of climate change adaptation into Nigeria's economic blueprint.
They are expected to key in by setting up the appropriate legal instruments.
Other speakers suggested measures that will reduce Nigeria's vulnerability to greenhouse gas emissions. There were other suggestions on the need to boost the resilience of the people by adopting appropriate actions to protect themselves from the impact of climate change.
The country is a large country. The framework for getting this thing across has to be through some kind of extension.
The people at the grassroots that ought to know, they should take the message to their doorsteps.
This discussion is going to help us as a nation to begin to look at the issues that have caused problems for us.
There is a provision that calls for public hearing.
Some of the conference proposals are harmonization of existing laws on environment for a comprehensive climate change bill, change in forestry practices, and introduction of carbon emissions taxes. Rabi Musa, NTA News.
As Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark the 2017 Water Day, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources is partnering with the Nigerian Television Authority on ways to highlight the symbiotic relationship between water and wastewater in the quest for sustainable development. Adebola Brooksley Sunday reports.
The staff of the Ministry of Water Resources, led by the Minister, embarked on a road walk from the Federal Secretariat through the Abuja metropolis. The walk terminated at the corporate headquarters of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. The Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, who received the group, assured the Minister and his team that as one of its corporate and social responsibilities, NTA will continue to educate end users on the judicious use of the resources.
So you may have vast quantities of water, but if you don't respect it, you may not have water anymore in a very short time.
In the quest for sustainable development, and also create opportunity to consolidate and build upon the previous World Water Days.
Later, at a press briefing, the minister responded to questions from journalists which centered on better management of water in the country.
where we have open gutters, and so you see a lot of wastewater there. It's a breeding ground for mosquitoes and so on. So we need to come together, states, local governments, and the federal government, to be able to harness, that, so that we have a clear way of dealing with our wastewater in such a way that it has no adverse effect on the environment.
This year's theme is wastewater. Nigeria presently has over 400 billion cubic meters of both surface and underground water. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
This is the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. We'll take a break now and be back shortly. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with NTA International News. The Nigerian military is committed to the peace and unity of the country, both internally and externally. Director of Defense Information, Major General John Enenche, gave the assurance when he visited some media establishments in Abuja. Adebola Brooklyn Sunday tells us more.
Knowing the power of pen and the place of publicity in promoting government activities and bridging the gap between the government and the governed, Major General John Enenche was at the Voice of Nigeria, where he sought a stronger collaboration, and his request was met.
There's nowhere in the northeast or any part of the country where the Boko Haram is hosting their flag. So for us, it's a milestone.
The Director of Defense Information was also a guest on one of the station's flagship programs. He then proceeded to the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, where he was received by the Executive Director News, Shola Atere, on behalf of the Director General, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad.
NTA is an institution that cherishes the unity, peace, and progress of the country. It is the duty of every Nigerian to make sure that the country is united, there's peace, and of course that is what will engender development.
The plane of decision now is in the airwaves, through the electronic and then the print media. And that is the only way you can win the hearts and minds of both those listening to you and those fighting in the war front. Of course, the troops in the front, they need to hear that, look, you are winning the war in the media. Then they can be encouraged and their morals will be high to be able to fight.
Major General John Enenche is on familiarization visits to media outfits in the country. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
Still on defense, in sustaining the success recorded against Boko Haram insurgents, the Nigerian Army is enhancing map reading skills of its personnel for tactical movement and maneuver. This came to the fore at the Guards Brigade first quarter inter-unit map reading competition held in Abuja. Defense correspondent Isaac Nkuma reports.
With its operations in the northeast and other parts of the country, the importance of map reading cannot be overemphasized. This map reading competition by the Guards Brigade Nigerian Army is aimed at enhancing troops' efficiency in the use of modern navigational equipment such as the Global Positioning System, GPS, moving away from the traditional map reading using the compass.
We are winning the war on insurgency in the northeast and addressing the security challenges in other parts of the country. This feat can only be sustained if we continue to train effectively. The Chief of Army Staff is doing everything possible to ensure that he creates the enabling environment for operations, training, and addressing welfare issues to make Nigerian Army one of the best anywhere in the world.
5 units participated in the competition, with each unit comprising 2 officers and 30 soldiers, among them 5 female personnel. They covered a distance of 9.48 kilometers point to point during the bush exercise. 176 Guards Battalion Gwagwalada emerged overall winner with a total time of 2 hours, 3 minutes. In Abuja, Isaac Nkuma, NTA News.
The Monetary Policy Committee has maintained all the monetary policy tools with the benchmark rate at 14%. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, who announced this at the end of the bi-monthly meeting, says the stand became imperative to further curtail rising inflationary trend and maintain foreign exchange stability. Sikiola Ipinaye reports.
Rising from its second meeting of the year, where the external and domestic economic developments were critically reviewed, the Monetary Policy Committee, in a vote of 9-1, retained all the monetary policy instruments with the monetary policy rate MPR at 14%, cash reserve requirement CRR at 22.5%, and liquidity ratio at 30%. Global developments put to consideration include U.S. interest rate review and anti-multilateral trade disposition, lower commodity prices, as well as possible downward trend in global economy. On the domestic front, it was a juggling situation between 2 major decisions that will impact gravely on the economy. The need to tighten and curtail the rising inflationary trend and further strengthen the naira, or to lose the monetary stance and increase lending, which might stimulate spending as a result of low interest rate. To maintain the monetary stance towards enhancing financial stability, however, took preeminence.
Committee also noted the benefits of loosening at this time, which will be in line with the needs of fiscal policy to restart growth. The MPC, however, noted that loosening will exacerbate inflationary pressures, worsen exchange rate, and further pull the real interest rate into negative territory.
The governor, who expressed satisfaction on the positive results so far recorded from the various interventions of the CBN in the forex market, is confident that the stance is sustainable with the nation's rising foreign reserves.
We've seen the rates now converging, and we are strongly optimistic, very, very optimistic, that the rates will converge further.
The committee also expressed confidence in the newly released Economic Recovery and Growth Plan that, if speedily and properly implemented, will fast-track the country's economic recovery and growth plan. In Abuja, Shikela Ikpenaye, NTA News.
Now to business news. As the naira extends gains against the dollar on the street markets, let's join Moplan Dakok for details of this and more on business news.
Hello there, glad to have you join me on Business News. The naira appreciated at the parallel market Tuesday as it exchanged for between 429 to 431 naira to a dollar. This is coming as the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, on Monday offered $180 million to meet the bids for wholesale auctions and requests for invisibles, valued at $80 million through the interbank market. On the stock market, the all-share index on the Nigerian Stock Exchange depreciated Tuesday. Here are closing figures. And that does it on business news for now. I am Moplan Dakok.
Up next on the bulletin is news across the globe, and Obiageli Ngwoke takes us through.
Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe has appealed for greater economic integration among African countries with the aim of creating a union of African states. President Mugabe was speaking at the African Economic Platform Summit in Mauritius, where he emphasized that regional groupings should work towards forming a greater body that will ensure the socio-economic development of the African continent. Talks on the 1994 genocide in Rwanda took center stage at the closed-door meeting, and the Catholic pontiff officially asked for forgiveness for what he described as the sins and failure of the church and its members during Rwanda's 1994 genocide. Meanwhile, the United States has warned that extremists plan to target passenger jets with bombs hidden in electronic devices. As a result, the government banned carrying electronic devices onto flights from 10 Middle East airports. Senior U.S. officials told reporters that 9 airlines from 8 countries had been given 96 hours from Tuesday to ban devices bigger than a cell phone or smartphone from the cabin. The banned items include all large electronic devices such as laptops, tablet cameras, DVD players, and electronic games, excluding phones. Obiageli Ugoke, NTA News.
Moving on to sports now, Youth and Sports Minister Solomon Dalung assures on return of school sports as Nigeria claims first victory in the Gauteng Future Champions Tournament in South Africa. Kene Mabudike brings us details on sports updates.
Minister of Youth and Sports Development Solomon Dalung has assured Nigerians of the commitment of the federal government to return school sports to its prime place as part of overall efforts to promote grassroots sports development in the country. Dalung gave the assurance while receiving representatives of the organizing committee and A3 Foundation, the promoters of the 19th edition of Nigerian Polytechnic Games Nipoga, led by Nasarawa State Commissioner for Youth and Sports, Bamiye Anamba. In the meantime, Rector of the Federal Polytechnic Nasarawa, Professor Shetima Abdulkadir Saidu, says preparation for a successful hosting of the 19th Nigerian Polytechnic Games, slated for April 26 to May 7, has reached completion stage, adding that the institution is expecting over 4,000 contingents for Nigerian polytechnics across the country.
Because we are hosting to win, the spirit is there. We have also really trained our contingents, and they are in top shape.
Super Eagles Crown Plaza camp in the United Kingdom came alive Monday with the arrival of invited players for the double international friendlies against Senegal and Burkina Faso. Debutants Noel Joel Bazi and Tyron Ebuehi were among the early arrivals as the team hopes to be complete by midweek ahead of the games billed for March 23 and 27. The Nigerian Professional Football League
taxation that